Hey everybody, this is Meredith Miller, your coach from Inner Integration. Today, the topic I have for you guys is to forgive or not forgive those who have trespassed against you. Now, I know this is a topic that's really challenging to talk about sometimes because this word forgiveness is such a loaded word. There are so many connotations from religion to spirituality, even to different cultures, and how people see this word forgiveness, what it means, what it entails. It means different things to different people. So I fully understand and respect that. But I want to use this word, I want to define this word for you today as the dictionary tells me. So Merriam-Webster dictionary says, to cease and feel resentment against an offender. The Cambridge dictionary says, to stop being angry with someone who did something wrong. So you can see that this word forgiveness, in the connotation of the dictionary, what it means is something like letting go or emptying yourself of those heavy feelings that you feel after someone hurts you. I also want to talk about a mistake that I made early on in the healing journey. I didn't even realize I was doing this. I kept thinking I was forgiving people, but really what I was doing is called spiritual bypassing. Now, I didn't even hear this word until like April last year. Someone said it and I was like, whoa, what's that? And I looked it up, but I didn't really look it up until recently. And I want to share this with you because you might be making the same mistake and not even realizing that you're doing it. So what is spiritual bypassing? There was a psychologist back in 1984 who coined this word. His name was John Wellwood, and he described spiritual bypassing as avoid dealing with painful feelings and unresolved wounds. He also called it avoidance and holy drag. That's pretty genius. So spiritual bypassing is also like pretending that everything is okay, which is a lot of what codependency is, right? Like you learn to pretend like everything's okay and you go with the flow and you go along with things. Robert Masters also described it as metaphysical Valium, right? So it kind of like numbs that pain in a false way. The pain is still there. You're just taking some kind of drug that makes you think the pain isn't there, but it's still going on. He also described it as avoiding the pain and legitimizing such avoidance. That's really powerful, legitimizing it in a spiritual way, like using some kind of spiritual or even religious dogma to justify or legitimize avoiding those feelings. So how do you know if you're doing spiritual bypassing? One example is exaggerated detachment, right? Where you're fooling yourself into thinking that you're not attached or you have such strong walls up around your heart that you're detached from everything, that you don't allow yourself to feel enough to feel hurt. Another one is overemphasis on the positive. When you only want to see the good, you only want to see the positive, you don't want to focus on the negative, you're just avoiding all those feelings. Another sign is anger phobia, where you're afraid of your own anger or you're afraid of other people's anger, so you avoid it entirely, you stuff it down. Another example is blind or overly tolerant compassion, right? This person's abusing you, people are abusing you, and you just keep extending compassion. It's okay, it's okay. We're all human, we all make mistakes, no one's perfect. Making these kinds of rationalizations, it's dangerous. Also, it could be having weak boundaries, and that goes along with that overly tolerant compassion. Maybe you have no boundaries. You just allow people to treat you that way, and you justify it and legitimize it in some sort of way. It could also be delusions of having arrived at a higher level of being. I've spiritually purified all that, and I feel more enlightened, and I don't feel that stuff anymore, or I don't let people make me feel that way, but maybe deep down you really do feel that way. Another example is devaluation of the personal relative to the spiritual, meaning, you minimize the personal feelings that you have, the personal experience that you had with this person, and you sort of wrap it in this spiritual, they're just a teacher and they came into my life to teach me. Now, all these things have some truth at some level, but if you're bypassing all the feelings that you need to process along the way, and just pretending that you're going straight to this goal. You're just stuffing this all down. You're just avoiding all of this. Also, emotional numbing and repression. That's where you just shut it off. You don't allow yourself to feel it. You stuff it down. You shut it off. You numb it. And essentially, it's like avoiding the big picture. You're not allowing yourself to see the big picture of what that relationship was, how that person treated you, what you went through, all of that. So also be very careful, because even though you could be using the spiritual bypass as a way, to make yourself think that you've forgiven this person or multiple people, but you really haven't. Be careful, because some people will use the spiritual bypass to abuse you. These are the narcissists, psychopaths, and sociopaths who show up in the spiritual form. There's a lot of them. They're cult leaders. They're out there leading large groups of people. Some of these people are being found out now on Medium. A lot of people are writing new articles, for example, on these different cult leaders. They infiltrate the cult. They discover a lot of things. And they put out a lot of this information. Spiritual narcissists will use spiritual bypassing to abuse you and then to justify their abuse. You'll hear them saying things to you like, just be more positive, stop coming around here with such negativity. Why do you have to see things in such a negative way? Or you're angry. Or, you're just more attached than me. When they want to justify why they don't really love you and they don't really prioritize you, and why they want to fuck around with all these other people, and they just tell you, you're just more attached. I'm more enlightened because I'm not attached. They'll also tell you, sorry about that, you need to have compassion for everyone or you're not spiritual. This spiritual narcissist that I worked with for a while in Peru, his thing was he loved to talk about Hitler, and who has compassion for Hitler. And if you don't have compassion for Hitler, then you're really not a spiritual person. And then that makes you want to excuse the abuse of him and the other people that he brings in to abuse you by proxy, and he gets to enjoy watching that happen. So these sorts of things are very common. Spiritual bypassing can be used as a weapon to abuse someone and justify it. It can also be used unknowingly into your unawareness, making yourself feel and think that you have forgiven someone when you actually haven't. And that could be dangerous, because that could set you up for more abuse. So the difference between that and grounded forgiveness or grounded letting go is you can't really let go until you are willing to feel the pain, the hurt, and the anger. You have to go deep into the core and the epicenter to face it, to feel it, to know it, to release it when you're ready. You can't circumvent it. You're fooling yourself if you're doing that. That's a defense mechanism that will lead to continual acceptance of that kind of treatment from that person or other people, because your own neurons will keep betraying you. So forgiveness is not like a mental decision. It's not an idea or a construct that you're like, oh yeah, I'll just forgive them. It's more a feeling state of the absence of the heavy feelings. It's more getting into the state of neutrality where you just don't feel the charge of that anger, the resentment, the betrayal anymore. Now, this is a lot easier to do when the events were shorter in duration of time, meaning you only spent some months or maybe a couple years with that person, and when the events had less intensity of an impact on you. So it's a lot easier to forgive someone that you knew for a short period of time, or that hurt you just a couple times, or maybe it was a one-off situation. It was a short period of time. It's a lot harder, for example, if you grew up with a narcissistic or psychopathic or sociopathic parent who would keep abusing you. They abused you for decades, and they would keep abusing you if you allowed them in your life, if they had the chance, and they can't even admit what they did. They can't even own it. They just justify that abuse. So I have for you guys what I would call the emptiness manifesto. I don't want to use the word forgiveness because, again, I know that's a loaded word. You can call it letting go, emptiness. I'm going to call this the emptying manifesto. And this is what I've written: to no longer allow the abuser to hold you back from the good things coming in the future. So I tell myself these things over and over again, and I see how I feel, how in alignment am I with that phrase or not, with that feeling or not. And I keep working on the ones that I'm still struggling with. So number one, and I'm going to use the word she. Feel free to use she or he, however you wish, whatever pronoun. I'm thinking of my mother in this case, so I'm going to use the word she. Number one, I can accept that she is who she is and what happened, happened. I recognize that I have no control over that, and I release my wish for it to be any different. Number two, I can allow myself to really feel the authenticity of my experience, the feelings of anger, betrayal, being unsupported, and not feeling safe or worthy. Number three, I recognize I no longer want to allow her or the memory of her to hurt me any longer. I choose to not allow her to sabotage my confidence or success, nor to disturb my sense of peace and joy. Number four, I give myself permission to prioritize my peace, my joy, my health, sanity, and well-being now and moving forward by applying healthy boundaries. Number five, I no longer tolerate abuse, use, mistreatment, or manipulation. I allow myself to judge and label abuse and abusers for who they are. Number six, I allow myself to release the feelings of anger, hurt, betrayal, bitterness, resentment, and hatred in my own time and as I feel ready, without forcing it. I acknowledge there are layers upon layers of this release that will take place over time, and I am patient with myself in this process. Number seven, I recognize that these feelings do not mean I am a bad person, nor do they mean I am not a spiritual or religious person. Number eight, I liberate myself from the pressure to love the abuser just because of her relationship to me or just because she is a sentient being, regardless of other people's perspectives and judgments of what I should do or how I should feel. Number nine, I no longer allow her reality, her behavior, or her words to make me feel any less or that I should be anything else than who I am. And number 10, I release myself from the false guilt of having to reconcile the relationship or having any contact with her. And so it is. So I hope this was helpful for you in your own forgiveness or letting go and emptying process after the abuse. I know it's very challenging when you feel all these feelings, when you've been through years and years of this treatment. Like I said, it might be a lot easier to forgive your ex who you knew for some months or a few years. It could be a lot harder to forgive a parent who you spent decades with, or maybe you were married for 20 or 30 years, and it's kind of like having grown up with a parent because you spent decades with this person, and there was so much hurt that took place during that time. So I'm going to close this up for now. I want to remind you guys, all the links are below my videos if you want to sign up for coaching via Skype, phone, or email, or if you want to check out any of my courses. And as usual, my beginner's course is free. All you need to do is go to innerintegration.com, opt in with your name and your email. You'll immediately get access to my beginner's 3-part video course on how to start healing after narcissistic abuse. I'm sending you all a big hug.